Our fridge Canadian.
Now, I will ask you to everyone that's watching. Do you really want a country constantly under a liberal regime because it's rigged in a way that the media fearmonger the conservatives, school media in general brainwash the people so they are more leaning toward the scums that are stealing from them? Mark Carney liberal utopia is the following: you won't own anything, yet you're happy. Only the richest people money will matter. Freedom of speech won't exist anymore. You are now China with snow. It sounds great, right? No. 15 years from now, under liberal regime means dictatorship, and instead of owning your home, you will be renting the government apartment until you die. Sounds very fun. 15 years from now, you will depend more than ever before on the controlling government. They control everything. Carney and the elites will have their mansions when you will be rotting in their small boxes. They will make you pay for rent. And we are there. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining. How are you, Mandalore?
I'm okay. Tired.
What
The
about you,
norm.
D Lord? The
I'm good.
dragon.
I'm
Amazing.
good. As I said, I don't know. Poor poor him. Makes Andor is going to be something else, but we'll have to cover that another day. And then other than that, it's all.
Amazing. So yesterday I briefly explained the four parties. So now we will let Mandalore go on the four parties we will be seeing on that debate. So Mandalore, what's your take on the four parties?
Are you sure you want me doing this in the first couple minutes when you have to be careful on YouTube? Um,
Try to
this
remain
is
YouTube friendly.
this
Try.
is my brash sort of simplified version. We'll start from which side do you want me to start from, left or right?
Start with Quebecer, like the way they are on the panel.
Okay,
So
Quebecers because they don't
Quebecer.
really fit. Quebecers don't really fit. Quebecers are a party that only represents one province. That's why they're called Bloc Québécois. Um, the leader of the party doesn't talk like you're supposed to he's like asking to be prime minister. He talks about Quebecois first. It's pretty much a Quebec party for French snobs
Yeah.
who want to be separate from Canada, but never actually vote to do it because they know they die on their own. They would turn
Rude but true.
not only that, they would turn into another Islam
Yeah.
country, and they would turn into what Israel, or not even Israel, but all the Muslim countries look like ancient desert cities. And this is in Canada. We'd have a desert city. Everything would be destroyed. Um,
Bomb everywhere.
we'll start from left to right. NDP, which is our supposed to be our left party, is actually our far left party. They're our version of communism, and they pretty much are extreme. They want to they have no money anywhere. Every province that they end up running gets destroyed. It has to be rescued. Um, they usually bankrupt because they take all this. They tax you to high hell. They talk about fair wages and stuff, but every time they do stuff, it raises prices. So you get more money, then prices go up, and then they go, well, it's bullshit. Um, they are just communism, and they are disgusting. Actually, there's a more far left party which I don't even think about because they're technically don't even hold legitimate party status. The Green Party, because they don't carry enough seats. Um, is drunk communism, and I say that not in the best way to describe it, but to describe their leader Elizabeth May, who has many times been caught drunk at events, speaking, and on the floor, where she just out of nowhere screams something about Palestine or anti-Israel or some other bullshit about conservatives are Nazis. They're not real. She's so bad that they had to bring in a co-chair of the party because in case she's ever too drunk to talk, they have someone else who can stand for her. I just discovered this, that they just brought in a chair co-leader because
And he's doing the interviews.
no, she
He's
still
doing.
is for the most part. He's
Oh.
doing more now, but once it came out that she's not even going to win her own riding, like Jagmeet Singh, they're going to lose their own riding and not even like they're done. Elizabeth May has become a laughing joke even to her own people. Then who was supposed to be our centrist people, which are actually leftists, is the liberals. They're not liberal as in the Americans, Democrats liberals. They are literally left-wing nut jobs. They're almost what the NDP were supposed to be. Like, well, no, ever since Trump, politics has kind of, and it's also been time where the left moves more left and the right moves more right. But that has been like, they are just bad. They're not even trying. Like, they almost turned into communists themselves. Like the previous party leader, Justin Trudeau.
He destroyed Canada.
He was literally turning into a communist China. One, he said he has a good relations. He admired China's how they're run. He sold
I
off.
thought he was Castro's child,
Well,
so it made more sense.
I still
Also-
say he is because of look at the pictures. There's no way of denying that he's not.
No, but seriously, like, yeah, no. Perspective wise, he was more of a WEF puppet because what you
Well, he was
realize,
both.
Trudeau, okay, so Trudeau kind of was part of the regime under WEF, or was just Klaus Schwab trying to block the Belt and Road Initiative that the Chinese were using to get resources. There's a whole thing if you know what the Belt and Road is. Like, he tried to, as I touched on yesterday when we did this, like about, they try to get access to the oil and the other stuff because the U.S. didn't touch it.
Oh yeah, but no, he's trying to take away freedom of speech. He's tried to take away protests. He locked down the country, and he took away locked down people's bank accounts for protesting.
No, you forgot. He got the courts. Your courts got permission to give him emergency powers so
then
he could declare martial law. Then they justified it as a rubber stamp.
Then it turned out that it was all bullshit, and nothing happened because our politics are a joke. We're not a real country. We're not quite as bad as Britain or most of Europe.
Don't speak too soon or too fast. Like,
No,
I mean, if Carney is elected, we will be worse than them.
If the liberals win, we will be part of Europe or China. No. So our centrist party, as when I was in high school and was taught, it's no longer centrist. It's then there's our conservatives who are a little bit more centrist nowadays. Like, they've almost moved a little more center. Like, I don't believe in the whole uniparty bullshit. Like, people are just upset that it's no party 100% their views, but no, we really do have a uniparty at this moment where they all seem to sort of be. I've lost faith in him, in our conservative leader. I still think he could be a great prime minister, but I've lost faith that anything will be done. He's a little too friendly with our terrorist people. And I don't mean that as just turban guy, Muslim guys. I'm talking about the people who are actually brought in and known terrorists from India. But he's our best choice. He's our best chance at the least amount of damage done, and any type of repair from the last what feels like 2,000 years. He pulls stupid moves, and he's doing this still randomly around right before the election, and I'm like, dude, stop. But the Conservatives are closer to conservatives than they are to Republicans than not. But because it's Canada and our politics is stupid anyway, and even our right party is more left, there's people who go, no, we don't like that. So Trudeau got this brilliant idea of getting one of his old friends to starting a new party called the People's Party of Canada, which is supposed to be our far-right group, which is nothing more than a liberal plant to split the conservative vote. There's some people who actually believe they're a legit party and they have a chance and they like their ideas, but it's kind of like Republicans where they're like, so there's that white trash expert, like the hillbilly sort of thing. They're kind of our mix of people who have some good ideas and hillbillies.
That's funny because you bring this up, and I went to early vote Sunday, and I only had 5 parties on my sheet of votes, and they were not part of it. So we had Conservative, Green Party, Liberal, NPD, and Québécois.
You guys don't even have Green Party, do you?
We did have Green Party, but not
People's Party of Canada is also it's thin spread. It's bigger than the Green Party because they actually had seats. They didn't just have one seat. But they are
nowhere to be found here.
But they're not even really real. Like almost all for years, they're nothing. They disappear. They don't talk. The leader doesn't talk. Maxime Bernier. But then right before elections, he pops his ass out and starts doing interviews like he's been part of this the whole time.
Wow. So I guess that's a description of the 4-party you will see very soon. So let's keep going where we left off yesterday. So right now, the guy you see is the conservative one, the only one I believe in that group, despite what Mandalore said. I still believe in Pierre Poilievre. I hope that guy will be elected.
I don't believe him. I think it's I've lost faith that he's going to be the best he possibly can. That he could, that he was seeing as.
Yeah. So I guess now we play what happens next.
Once again, pay off with a powerful paycheck that buys you an affordable home. So
you want to save people
$2,000, and that's what we will deliver.
You want to save people $2,000, but cut their dental care, which is thousands of dollars.
False.
Cut their child care, which is thousands of dollars. Cut pharmacare coverage, which is thousands of dollars.
False.
That's not a very good math deal right there. You're gonna save people $2,000, but cost them tens of thousands of dollars. That's why you cannot afford conservatives, and you certainly can't trust the liberals on their own.
Mark Carney's turn.
You need New Democrats.
Mark Carney.
I'm going to reinforce that point, and then I'll respond to Mr. Blanchet. Child care in this country, $3,000 to $10,000 a year for a family, depending on where you live.
Province, jurisdiction.
Depending on where you live, that's what's being saved there. 800.
I must clap here. We had like 30 seconds where Jagmeet didn't cut off someone. That's impressive track record coming from the guy that kept cutting off people in both debate, this one and the French one. I must praise Jagmeet. He was able to keep his mouth shut for a few seconds.
$8 per trip to the dentist. We've expanded dental care to 8 million Canadians.
Because we
8 million Canadians.
Because New Democrats.
Pharmacare. These are fundamental issues for affordability. We're talking about affordability and taking them off in order.
That's why you need New Democrats.
Quebec.
That's not what I've said.
And in terms of
income taxes
working with Quebec
for Canadians.
Yes, absolutely. Throughout the short time I've been Prime Minister, working directly with the Premier of Quebec, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, our Minister of Finance are from Quebec. Quebec and Quebec issues, whether it's
climate, to answer Mr. Legault's.
We still hear that goddamn guy. He cannot let others speak. He gets under my skin. Any thoughts on that, guys?
On Jagoff?
Yeah, Jagoff keeps cutting off. He gets under my skin. I hate this shit.
they don't try to bring him in. I mean, at least there's support where in when we had our debates or stuff in the U.S., they would mute a person's mic.
They
yeah, no,
muted Jaime in the French debate. It's
Can it-
just here they let him go wild.
Canada isn't rude enough to cut people's mics off. I think it's also Jagoff thinks he insults Trump and hates Trump and blah 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 blah. But he's pulling Trump's moves by trying to talk over people, going wrong. He's not doing that. He's just going lie.
Yeah, and yeah, like I cannot stand Jagmeet, and I'm not surprised his party is collapsing.
Letter. He asked 5 things in the letter. He reduced his expectations.
We're talking about...
And you did not even answer him. And tonight, you are so much in love with Quebec.
Steve, the question that Canadians
Doesn't
have to
know what
ask
to say.
Why vote for
whether-
conservatives?
why-
When the same
why-
time
why-
He's got
cost you tens of
Mr.
thousands.
Singh, Mr. Singh.
It's just funny that anytime a topic comes up, he then goes no, or he will fight and say, "Oh, he lost." He said he tries to suck up to everyone at the same time with contradicting himself. Like he right now because of the Quebec part keeps coming up. I hate that I'm now saying Quebecois rather than Quebec. I want to hit myself. I must be a little bit high right now. That's why I can't say Quebec. But now he's saying, but now that he's been called out on Quebec stuff, which is bullshit because it's a whole country, not just one fucking province. He just is now saying, "Oh, we love Quebec. Quebec is so this and all this, and I'm standing with them on this, and I'm going to defend Quebec separately." Bullshit. And then the leader, who pretty much is pretty much the leader of Quebec, even though there's all the other stuff. His is the party that runs it pretty much. He's like bullshit.
Yeah. So Carney is caught on lies again.
Sorry, he has the floor. Come on.
The question you have to ask is, after a decade of liberal promises, can you afford food? Is your housing more affordable than it used to be?
No and no.
What is
Even
your
my
cost of living
condo,
like
I only got
compared-
a condo, my tax went crazy. It's hilarious. Even my condo is affected by that, and I own this shit, so I cannot imagine people in apartments.
to what it was a decade ago? And are you prepared to elect the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal staffers all over again for a 4th term? Mr. Carney, Justin Trudeau's staffers are actually here with you at this debate in Montreal, writing the talking points that you are regurgitating into the microphone. How can we possibly believe that
That's
you are
painful.
any
Well,
different?
He doesn't know what to say. He was like, that guy's right, so I'll just smile and laugh.
I mean, getting cooked. The guy, okay, the thing about him is he's cooking the rest of the people. Carney just sits there like a puppet. That's all he can do. Emotionless, stares forward, acts like it's not. And says, you're doing the liberal talking points.
Is it the Canada Strong you want? The guy that just doesn't know what to say as
As I said, he's the sober Kamala Harris, where when he's asked, because Biden was Biden because he was senile and he couldn't talk straight. Neither can I right now.
Well, he's doing the thing is the stoic answer is not an answer.
Not even that, but he's doing the same thing Kamala did, where when asked about something, she would then say, "Oh yeah, we're definitely doing that." Just like as right after Trump said no taxes on tips, she went out and said that, and then never said it again because people are going, that's Trump's.
See, the only thing
he
is
can't talk on his own without a script.
So here's the thing: that he knows damn well most of the voters aren't going to see this. If they see this, they're going to see this in clips. So he just sits there stoically, so he can get the other people.
Than the previous 10 years of Liberal
25
government.
seconds left in this segment for you to respond to that.
Look, I do my own talking points. Thank you very much. The biggest risk we have to affordability, the biggest risk we have to this economy is Donald Trump. So first and foremost...
No, it's the Liberal. Let me laugh. Even harder, it's the Liberal. It's not true.
But you're seeing he's having trouble talking. Like he says he writes his own talking points, but then he would be able to say this a lot clearer and without as much pauses or if he knew what he was saying, if he believed this and this was his talking points, but he's not. He's having to think of things to say because he doesn't know what to say.
Fact.
We've got to get that right. Secondly, we need to do it in a way that brings everyone along together. That means preserving pharmacare, dental care, child care, reinforcing health care, spending our
Intrusion in Quebec jurisdiction over and again. I like if we're any better than we are.
The clock is
there
on zero.
one?
Now, I'll admit, this time around, he did cut off Carney, so because I keep complaining about Jaime, I will complain about Mr. Quebecer, irrelevant guy. Stop doing that, Jaime.
No, but he's also doing that because it's Quebec is better than Canada, so you need to suck up, especially to Quebec. Not talking about Canada, talk about Quebec. And he got him off to saying blah, 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 which intrudes on Quebec. It's like, we're here for Canada, not fucking Quebec. Shut the fuck up, Frenchie. Go back to Russia.
Can do that Quebecers cannot do. You are doing intrusions in our jurisdiction with our money, pretending you are better. And most of the time you try to copy what we did with our own money against us. What's that as a policy? Don't you have your own things to care about?
That really is time for this segment. I wanted to be polite and let everybody finish their points, but
far behind,
we got to move on.
I took the liberty.
Thank you. Okay, that ends section 2. Up next, public safety and security.
Fight crime, to protect Canadians, and to build communities that are safe, secure, and strong.
Keep crime, drugs, stolen cars, and other illegal substances out of our country.
By the way, there's the perfect
and that means
response.
hiring more border
Have you ever
officers.
seen the Family Guy thing?
Are in short supply.
Where it's arguing with a Democrat, and it's the person trying to be logical, and then there's a donkey. That comes from Family Guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, that clip is probably 10 plus years old at this rate, but it's very accurate when you're talking to a Democrat or a liberal.
That's true.
No, it's funny as how they do it.
This is not the nice way to treat people who come to our border.
Okay, same format, one-on-one questions and then open debate. Monsieur Blanchet, you get to go first in this one. Public safety and security. For a lot of people, that means the fentanyl crisis. I'd like to know what you could contribute to ending that crisis in this country.
The fentanyl crisis is a very serious issue, which is a bit less important in Quebec than it is in British Columbia. I think the whole border thing is the real issue. Immigration is a very important issue for Quebecers. Immigration has to be dealt with in an orderly fashion. Our borders are not dealt with in an orderly fashion. The rules are not respected. The rules are unclear. Some rules even invite people to hide for 2 weeks illegally before coming out. Some things has to be done. The situation of one person asking for asylum may take as much as 4 years without us reducing the number in order to deal with them in a human way. The services for every citizen in Quebec are being reduced because we cannot afford the fact that we are receiving much, much more people in Quebec from this specific type of immigration.
This is an issue affecting Canada. This is an issue affecting Quebec.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. So, again, irrelevant. Nobody outside of Quebec will vote for this shit.
Then we can afford, and we cannot teach them French.
That's time, Monsieur Blanchet. We can, of course, return to the immigration issue during open debate, should you choose to. Mr. Carney, question for you. The Liberal gun buyback policy, not considered a success by many people. Reviving it is in your platform.
Yeah.
Why would it
Statu quo! The guy wants to save shit, that's true, though.
work this time?
Yeah, I think, well, what we've seen with that policy is some success at the,
No, not really.
commercial level, but not at the individual level, because it hasn't been, in my opinion, it hasn't been organized properly, and it needs to be organized properly. And instructed the Minister of National Security and Public Safety in order to do that. So part of this is a different focus of government, a focus on results, a focus on clear milestones in the short term. Let me make a broader point, though, on gun, which is that we have a problem with guns coming over borders, which is why we've tightened our borders. We have an issue, though, with a gun industry that is continually coming up with new forms of assault rifles, mass killing machines. We banned over 2,000 of these. Every single time there has been a vote in the House of Commons on gun control, Mr. Poilievre has voted against it. You can't be tough on crime unless you're tough on guns.
Mr. Poilievre, you can come back on that in the open debate if you want to, but my question for you in this segment is, Indigenous people are statistically overrepresented in our correction system. Are you concerned that your tough on crime platform will make that worse?
I'm concerned that Indigenous people are disproportionately the victims of crime. I give you the example
I like that
of
approach. I'm
a
all
wonderful group of Indigenous people who came under attack in Saskatchewan, and many of them were murdered. Killer was out of jail after 60 prior convictions. This is the result of 10 years of liberal laws that allow the same offenders to be released dozens and dozens of times, even when it's known they are a danger. We can't risk a fourth liberal term of soft on crime policies. We need a change. And the Conservative plan for change will bring in a 3 strikes you're outlaw, 3 convictions for serious crimes, you go to jail for at least 10 years, maybe for life, no chance of parole or bail. We will bring in life sentences for traffickers of fentanyl, human beings, and guns. And
Good idea.
we will
They are
secure our borders to
despicable
keep the
people.
illegal
Thank you,
guns
Mr.
out.
Poilievre. That's time. Mr. Singh, your question is about the RCMP, because you've got RCMP reform in your platform. What, in your view, is the problem with the RCMP?
Okay, I will pause.
Well, some of the basis for this is the concern that's been raised.
What did you want to say, Mandalore?
Well, I just want to say that, wow, that's just this whole setup for debate, asking each one a different question and then says, oh yeah, we'll get back to that when we come to that debate. Why not do these topics one at a time?
So they didn't agree with its various questions for the different.
By
the way, the 3 strike law, that's in Texas and in the U.S. You guys would love or hate part of the 3 strike law because it's not exactly the same way, but it's also why America has a massive jailing issue too, because we have stricter, like, oh, you do 3 major crimes, we throw you under the jail. Yeah, that opens up a bigger can of worms. But yeah, that's not a bad response. Like, okay, does Canada have anything like ICE, where you guys deport your illegals or criminal illegals that you find?
I don't think so. Oh well, actually, I think we do have ICE, but it's under a different name and it's rare, to be honest.
Like a ICE,
I think we do have ICE actually. Yeah, it's not the same name, but I think we do have ICE. I think I might be wrong there.
You know actually how it's funny how Trump's been getting. Well, see, here's a funny thing about when we had all these criminal migrants. They've been going from major city to major, or area to area, right? When they went up to Boston and these sanctuary cities, or like New York as an example. There was a whole street with a bunch of shitters or / like bodegas type stuff where a bunch of illegals were walking around, or bad people. We found a lot of these criminals. Biden's people could have found them. Trump's people, when they went into like New York, Boston, they're going into these major hubs. They could have been found easily if you just looked up their addresses. Now, I'm sure in Canada you have a database more than the U.S.,
Yeah.
Here, you know, you have to get lucky sometimes, but hmm. But
So
yeah, no,
it's
he
funny how most of the time when I pause, he has his eyes closed.
no. But what's
In
funny
more
is the
rural communities.
conservative guy. I will say this: that's pretty good. The only thing I would disagree with, you guys got to be really careful with that three strike law because you'll start to have the people go with the over criminalization as well.
In
Yeah.
northern communities that there have been some serious concerns about violence or inappropriate use of force when it comes to
So
the
RCMP is like the FBI. It's the federal police.
execution of their duties. We want to make sure that we've got a top tier police force that provides security and safety to those communities in a way that's sensitive and understanding of the communities they're serving. I also think what's very important is for Indigenous communities, Indigenous policing. This is an area of deep concern. I think everyone in our country should be safe. You should be able to be safe at home, safe when you go to work, safe if you take public transit, safe for your kids to be able to play in the local playground. And that's something I'm committed to. The other area that I'm focused on when it comes to public safety is making sure we prevent crime before it happens. And that's why we want to see increased investments in our border security. We saw under the Conservatives, they cut 1,100 border officers in one day. So that prevented our ability to keep our borders safe. That stops those
Okay,
materials from
Mr.
coming
Singh,
into the
that's
country.
time. Not sure it was about the RCMP, but maybe we can get back to that during the open debate segment,
Okay, him
which we go to right.
talking about anything to do with borders is bullshit because he's also one of the ones who says we need to bring in more migrants.
Yeah, and it's stupid.
And
We
he's
don't
one of the
even
ones
have the
who I'm
rules.
pretty sure he said no person is illegal, or if he hasn't said it, he would say it.
That's true. And it's funny because you were like, oh, why don't they have these question asked as specific topic or whatever? I feel like they didn't do this because they had limited time and they didn't want it to be too long, but they already had question they wanted everyone to ask. I think it's very formulaic what they wanted to do. So let's just keep going.
Right now, and Mr. Polyev, you get the first word on this one, and it sort of dovetails on the last answer you gave, which is you have pledged to be the first prime minister in this country to use the notwithstanding clause, setting aside charter rights of, as you call them, multiple murderers. Why do you think that's necessary?
To be clear, I want to uphold the charter rights of Canadians under Section 7 to life, liberty, and security of the person. Right now, that right is violated by multiple murderers who are given discounts. The case in question was a gentleman who went into a mosque and shot dead 6 innocent worshipers. He got, according to this ruling, only one 25-year sentence, meaning he can be out in his 50s. He only serves 4 years for every murder that he carried out. That is outrageous. And I will use the constitutional powers that are created for this purpose to ensure that mass murderers stay in maximum security penitentiary for life. They will only come out in a box. We will also pass tough new laws that prevent repeat offenders from getting out. If you commit 3 offenses under the 3 strikes law I propose, you will not be allowed out of jail until you prove that you are drug-free, that you are behaved perfectly, and that you've learned an employable skill, and you've served a 10-year sentence.
I gotta say this. He knows his stuff. He doesn't seem like someone that reads through something or that learned something by art and like it's not something he really wants. I feel like it's really something he believes in. Any thoughts on that, the Lord or Mandalore?
no, he does know his stuff. Like the going light, like because you don't want to be like in the UK, which is having to deal with the quote unquote fallout from the groomer gangs and the other people. Like I know it's a loaded question. Like in the UK, what is handled harsher? People committed of those crimes, touching or doing that type stuff, or people who send mean tweets?
Oh, and in UK,
Don't.
you're more in trouble for defending yourself than the person who committed the
So the
crime.
people who do. So what's happening in the parts of the UK is people who say crap more online are getting worse than the people doing the actual stuff and then calling their friends over to do stuff. Oh, and then they just get out. That's happening in the UK, similar to like in there. But here in the US, right, or you guys have it, oh, you can just go walk free after you've done these crimes.
That's true. Um, we just let them walk free.
Cannot allow liberal crime
two-tier
and
system.
chaos to go on terrorizing our communities. What we need is a real plan for change so that we can bring back the safety and the security that Canadians used to take for granted.
Let me get Mr. Carney to respond to that. Do you think that's an appropriate use of the notwithstanding clause of the Charter?
I think that one of the core responsibilities of the federal government, Prime Minister, is to defend the fundamental rights and liberties of Canadians. And those fundamental rights and liberties of Canadians are outlined in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is 43 years old literally today. I think it's a very dangerous slope to override judgments of the Supreme Court of Canada. In fact, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms exists.
He puts me to sleep when he speaks. It's terrible. Like, who thought that was a goddamn good idea to have him in charge? That election is rigged if he wins, for real.
That's why I'm saying I also don't have hope.
Canadians.
Because there's a good chance he might.
People like us on the stage. Politicians who
compare this to what we had with Pulyev.
Their power
it's just hilarious.
To override fundamental rights.
People are gullible and stupid.
Using by the federal government, I'll stop here, is not where you start, but where will you stop?
Mr. Polyev, I should get Mr. Polyev on that. Is it a slippery slope if you use it in this case?
I must say, I would be quite interested too, because Mr. Carney said that he didn't want us to use the notwithstanding clause before adopting a law. And yesterday he said that he felt that it was wrong to use the notwithstanding clause after a law is adopted. So if we cannot use it before and we cannot use it after, it means that Mr. Carney believes that we should never use it. But it is very important. And the Ford case made it clear. The Constitution says how it should be used, but never how or what we will do with it, because it's the prerogative of the provinces. So do you want the Supreme Court to overrule another judgment of the same Supreme Court because you don't like it? Because that would be being the hell of a politician, as you define.
Look at that face! I will be honest, Blanchet right now makes some points because he was smelling the blood in the water. He's the shark. He's going after the throat. So, Mandalore, are you still around? Because I feel like you will be better than me to explain what that law there is to the Lord that was asking.
I don't know the specifics of it enough to even talk about it.
Well, okay. That's your
So
answer.
basically, I guess according to Google, allows it's formally known as Section 33 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom, allows a federal or provincial parliament to temporarily override or notwithstanding certain sections of the charter for a period of 5 years. This allows them to enact laws that otherwise might violate fundamental freedoms, illegal rights, or equality rights, but cannot be used to override democratic, mobility, or language rights.
And it's been proven there in that question he asked Carney that Carney doesn't want that law there that sees something-ish to be applied. So he doesn't, he decides to use what he wants.
So
like
it
a dictator.
allows, so basically from what I'm seeing is it allows a province in your actual provision, a declaration made under shall have ceased to have effective 5 years, I guess, unless a court overturns it, because it allows the provinces and the others to override. It's kind of like a state versus federal government right. And I'm assuming that the conservative guy is talking about doing that
Yeah.
at the federal level, and I'm pretty sure it's been used by others.
Yeah, like Trudeau, he did something similar with the trucker, and he overrode the province there.
Them.
Well,
You
let
wanna
me
come
just start
back
by
to that?
saying,
Okay,
first of
Mr.
all, yeah, thank you. I just started by saying, let's not let Mr. Polyev get away with making this ludicrous claim that anyone on this stage thinks that violent crime should get a less severe penalty. Obviously, that is not a special position that he's taking. Everyone agrees that horrible crimes should have horrible sentences.
No, they
Judges
are
are
fucking
equipped to do
lenient.
that.
What? Repeat?
They are fucking lenient. The NDP and the Liberals
Yeah.
want to go easier on crime. That's not.
Let them walk. Let them inject themselves with
Or
substance.
let them get very little time. Get them slapped on the wrists.
That's
No.
exactly their policy.
What
They don't want rules.
Pierre is talking about is literally a special statement.
No, they probably believe. I have a suspicion that these people, if they are neoliberals, believe over criminalization or policing, etc., stuff like that, leads to a stigmatization of whatever they have. Because, like, in parts of, like, the Philippines and, like, over that part, you know how they deal with drug dealers? The drug issue? They send the user to automatic hardcore rehab, which weans the user off the drugs majority of the time. And then if they do catch the dealers, you don't want to be them.
Well, and let's not also forget
You
that,
take the user off the street and then you take the dealers. But like something like that, like when it comes to a neoliberal person, they go, you gotta empathize why the person's a drug user. You know, that the person has alcoholism and X, Y, and Z, right? And in certain cases, there are extenuating circumstances under criminal law, but they go, oh, the man is poor and whatever. But how this gets used in the U.S. by people like him is they go, but he's just a black man. He can't help his stuff. Have leniency, and then he pulls out a rap sheet record the size of the fucking Titanic, where he's never learned from his probations, etc., etc. It's not like one person gets marked with, oh, you get low level possession. Now you're marked and you can't get an apartment or something, you know. That type shit is something we need more of to like understand when you get either convicted or something like that. But a lot of these people, when it comes to certain charges, they'll be like, wave that away, minor possession, shipping fentanyl. What's funny about the whole fentanyl thing is that most of the fentanyl, surprisingly, like in the US, probably similar for you guys, is coming from China or Mexican migrants carrying it over to your country, which are getting that fentanyl from China.
Yeah.
And that's what they don't talk about publicly. And the problem here is we started cracking down. Like Sujin Wojcicki's kid, who was the head of like YouTube for a period, her kid died of that. A bunch of famous people died of that. They could have clamped down on that. But
Yeah.
those dealers should get the death penalty.
I'm against death penalty, but I think this is one of the few cases like human trafficking where
No,
they should let it.
but here's the thing that proves that Jagmeet's full of shit. It's the NDP in BC and whatnot who are pushing for the free drugs and the vending machines that are killing minors who are getting free drugs.
Yeah.
But they see no problem with that.
Because liberals,
They're supporting drug people.
Fact.
And that's the NDP. That's not the liberals. So it's just very much bullshit.
Don't let Mr. Poilievre's rhetoric confuse people. Obviously, everyone agrees that if someone does something horrible, they should pay a horrible price for it. There should be appropriate sentence that's put in place by a judge. But what I'm concerned about is all of what Mr. Poilievre is talking about is after the fact. Now, there's heinous things that happen, and there needs to be severe penalties put in place. But we also need to keep communities safe. And that's what my focus is. Well, how do we stop crime before it happens? Much of the violent crime that's committed is committed by illegal handguns and firearms that come across the border.
Shut up.
Now, Mr. Poilievre has admitted that as well, that it is illegal handguns and illegal weapons that are used in violent crime. So our plan is let's stop those illegal weapons getting into our country in the first place. And the way we do that is by having stronger border security officers and having more people on the border.
Well, that's hilarious because he's the one that championed immigration. So like it's two word, two measure. They don't work well together.
He says he wants to do it by. No, it's not that. The way he's going to do it, and liberals like to do it, is by gun controls, by banning guns in general, because they think that's going to fix everything, and it's not. Because guess what? Illegals, people who want a gun, don't do it legally, and they have their ways.
Yeah, because when it's legal, it's easy to retrace and know exactly who used that weapon. But when it's on the dark market, good luck. Keep searching.
Mr. Pierre Poilievre, when he was in power in the Conservatives, they cut the number of border officers.
Okay.
They reduced the number, weakening our borders.
Keeping an eye on time
can't
here.
trust them
Let's
to
get
do
back
these
to
type of
Mr.
things.
Poilievre on the issue of whether, in using the notwithstanding clause under these circumstances, would be a kind of a slippery slope and encourage politicians to use it more.
No, we will use it to protect the charter rights of law-abiding Canadians. I'm interested in the rights of victims. Mr. Carney seems to be very interested in the rights of criminals. He says that it's dangerous for me to ensure that mass murderers stay behind bars for life. You know what's dangerous? Turning them loose on our streets. I don't think you appreciate, sir, the chaos that is unfolding in communities. In Toronto right now, the police have been forced to tell people to just let the thief steal the car. When they break into the house, just take the keys. Just let them take the keys so that you don't get hurt. People are living in terror in many of our communities precisely because of the catch and release bail law, C-75, which requires judges release the accused at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions.
They didn't know the catch and release was a shitty fucking idea.
That's the liberal, buddy. What do you think?
They've been doing catch and release. What's funny is if Canada's been doing that, they've been doing catch and release in certain areas. That's what led to areas like Chicago and New York and like Washington, which is above California, not DC, but Washington and Oregon, to have issues where whether migrants used it or the others, we hold the murderers, right? We hold the serious people, but the people just go out or we give them low bail, basically cheap bail. Like, a lot of the people who, like, it's been in effect for more than 4 years. You remember, like, during the Black Lives Matter protests or other stuff, they literally said, okay, you have a low-grade crime. We're not going to put a bail, but we also don't want to hold you forever because the legal system's going to be backed up. Yeah, no shit, the person's going to get out and do crime.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that's a stupid policy. You should have learned from us where that's stupid. Where those people, a lot of the times, it's not just minor. Like, but then again, I don't know. but America has more of a police state. And if, by the way, if they're worried about uh using that to suspend rights, which in the US we have this problem right now, because it's like when you look at a lot of stuff Trump does, Trump skirts a line of what you think is legal or what is morally right. Like a lot of us will agree with about 65% what he says. That 35% is really weird. Like I got told he has his own Bible he sells where he cut up like parts of other stuff, like, and you're like thinking a lot of stuff he says, but you don't think it's because if you start worrying about the totalitarian slipping in your government, basically, you should make sure you elect people who know how to use powers. Like if there is a case where you need to declare, like in the US to get martial law, like prime example, like during Black Lives Matter, the states had to authorize for troops to come in federally.
Yeah.
Because the Trump or a president can't just go, oh, you got a riot, we're going to send in troops. You have to have the state go, do you want that? That's why, like, during the case of the Chaz up in the Chaz state, up in Seattle, when that was going on, they waited until that situation got worse, then asked the federal government to come help them clear it out. Because, again, this is the U.S., not Canada. The problem we saw, I guess you saw it, yes, but there's also the problem in the U.S. Whatever Trump does can be undone by the stroke of a pen or by another regime under the same thing. Because there's also this thing, liberals also assume that conservative people, when we think of conservative people who follow the rule of law, are going to become the dictators.
Yeah.
Which is possible, but very rare. Because what he's talking about doing is what Trump is doing to clean up the criminal migrants. Just get them out. Yes, you are hitting certain people. People who are innocent are getting swept up, and other things are getting done, but there should be a way to fix that.
Yeah.
You can, but these are the same people. If you were fighting a war, would legislate morality.
Well, they already are trying that.
But you know what I'm talking about. They would do the same because you think, oh, we have a state of war. We need to actually, a disaster so stuff doesn't get looted. Oh, you don't declare martial law?
That's what they did with the trucker.
Well, with COVID.
Yeah, COVID as well.
But you get what I'm saying, right? With
Yes, I do.
Like everybody. But what's funny is liberal people or the progressives are more apt to abuse power. Biden and Obama both were closer. Well, Biden is mixed, was his administration was neoliberalism, but like Obama's would mix with the other people. But he was more apt to just do executive fiat, which is rules made by executive order, which is more scarier than a conservative, which lets the courts play out.
Yeah.
Because for every action Trump has tried to do with executive, the states and even conservative states have blocked it.
And
They don't disagree with what he's doing. They disagree with how he's doing it.
It's funny how the liberals they think the past is kind of wrong and that's why we need to do whatever we want, and the conservatives are like, we have rules and regulation, let's follow them. that's exactly the philosophy of what's going on.
Every single member of your Liberal caucus and your Liberal cabinet voted in favor of this bill, and they are all determined to keep it in place despite constant promises to the contrary. Mr. Carney, Canadians deserve to live in peace and security. That is the right that I'm fighting for a change.
I'm fighting for that as well. And let me be
Liar,
specific
as
about
usual.
two things. That have been
No,
raised.
he just
He
has a
lies
stone
like
gremlin
with respect
face.
to these issues of car theft, home invasion, and I'll use the greater the GTA area where there has been sharp increase.
Let's
How do you
smell the
attack
blood.
that?
Let's go
You
after
attack
him
it several
again.
ways. One, you increase the criminal penalties for that happening, particularly if you're part of a gang, particularly if you use a firearm.
And you will do that?
And we're doing so. We've committed to doing so. You put in place a reverse onus in terms of bail so that it has to be proven that there's not a risk, which we've also committed to. And then you go to what Mr. Singh was talking about, which is we have to reinforce our frontiers. That's why we're committing to an extra
We must reinforce the frontier by accepting more immigrants because this is our policy for like
Okay, so
15
the
years.
philosophy you're seeing described is called, it extends from harm reduction. Harm reduction is, and I can guarantee you, it's been a liberal cornerstone for a while, which has led to, oh, marijuana is not as bad than hard drug, you know. A guy comes in with coke or heroin, you know, you probably don't. The reason why you have a blanket policy on drug use in drug crime is because there's very little difference when you're being charged as a threat between a low grade substance to a higher. You still see him as it. Now, but these are the same people with under harm reduction. Are you a real threat? Are you that? Which threat assessment? But they've been conditioned, because when you go to the ghettos and you go to that, those people know what they can get away with and not. Like, oh, I'm drinking on a street corner, the cop ain't gonna stop me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But they go, oh, if I get caught with just prescription use marijuana.
No, it's not even that. It's they pretty much know nothing will really happen to them, especially if they're a minority.
It's not even that. Just think of it like harm reduction. Basically, what he's talking about is harm reduction and not throwing the person in jail potentially for their crime. I'm going to have a faith that the cops know what's a better crime. Let's say someone's convicted of nearly, there should be a due process and everyone has a right to bail. But if, like, people who get out who have, like, certain crimes, you shouldn't probably let them out. If it's gang-related violence, they should be held.
Yeah, because that will just encourage for more.
1,000 Canada Border Service agents, an extra 1,000 RCMPs. That's why, as part of the broader fentanyl initiative, where we've added to the RCMP there, we've added drones, we're adding helicopters, we're adding surveillance, and we're going to the other end of the chain with respect to car theft, which is tightening security at the ports. This is what we need. In order to get results, you need to focus where at both ends of the chains of the federal government.
Singh.
Thank you very much. I want to talk about one of the issues that has come up is the idea of the public safety concerns around the overdose crisis and how this is devastating our communities. We're seeing
it's because people are just giving away the money of the taxpayer to give money so people can inject and use substance and such in a safe space. Really, this is what's going on there. If you believe in that, that's bad. That's
There's
really
also the removing of the stigma around drug use. Like, if you have, I always said given enough time in the U.S., you would want to see the legalization of stuff. Like, give it enough time. Because they go, oh, it's just a Schedule 1 drug, right? That's all it is. It's just a Schedule 1. Why is it so bad with... It's just that. It's not a... Weed or marijuana isn't heroin.
And then you climb that ladder and get worse and worse.
Then it gets
so many lives being lost.
Yes.
In that, we know that one of the ways to address that is by investing in some of the solutions like mental health services and rehabilitation services.
It's funny how he says how he speaks about rehabilitation, but like there's a lot more places where you can use safely that substance and places that actually cure you from it. They want you addicted. This is the Democrats and the liberal idea there.
Oh yeah, they're not.
Our community.
Yeah, giving out free does not cure the problem. Giving it free and easy is the way you can make it continue, and you kill people.
Well, welcome to the stream, GeoGuessr Leaks. We are not usually doing that kind of stuff, but today is a special day because we are in election week. And welcome to the show. And again, usually we review TV shows and movies, but I think here in Canada, it's a very important election. Therefore, we must speak about it. I'm worried. We don't want liberals again. And I'm sorry if you believe in liberals, but it's more of the same. And conservative are the true change. That's what I think.
You're also streaming at a different time than you normally are. You don't follow monogamy. No, what you're seeing is it's a harm reduction, but it also leads to a fallacy of if you think you can wean them off drugs, you'll solve the issue in Canada, which in the US, this doesn't work either because the people, fentanyl and that type stuff does kill because you don't know what that stuff is cut with. Because, like, this is what I have never understood about liberals. They go, hey, it's just weed. I smoked weed when I was a kid and whatever else. That's not the same as grown. What is grown now is not the same as the dirt you smoked. There's more like THC and stuff and more chemicals in the drugs now.
Whoa. It's not even that. It's if they regulated them and had centers for people who are addicted, that's one thing. But just having free vending machines that give it out as long as there's stock does not help them slow down. It makes it easier.
Yeah. So I guess we'll hear more about that crazy guy that wants the statu quo to remain.
Pretty safe, having access to those good services. Both Mr. Carney and Mr. Poilievre are proposing cutting government spending and cutting those services. That's not going to make our community safer. We need to see better investments in rehabilitation services, more investments in mental health. We need to respond to this serious.
And it's funny because he says investment in rehabilitation, but one of the conservative platform is basically just that. Instead of giving money so people can use substance, they will give money so people are rehabilitated. So there are some aspects where they connect, but just because it's Pierre Poilievre, that guy that talks, well, he doesn't respect that, doesn't want that, and he doesn't even see it. He doesn't even realize that part of the conservative platform is to rehabilitation. So again, that pisses me off so much. Really, that's annoying. Any thoughts on that, Mandalore?
I just can't stand him. He is.
He'll see you stop by.
Serious crisis in our country with care and compassion. I met with Moms Stop the Harm.
Care and compassion won't solve anything. We need a plan. We need solution.
to this opioid
That's what I was
overdose
talking
crisis.
about,
They've
harm
literally had their
reduction.
children
Well,
die
Oz,
because of this.
So I was talking about
California.
harm reduction.
Can hear the lightsaber in the background.
Oh, that's just wife messaging me. Surprisingly, a mayor in California actually had a great idea how to solve the drug use. Give out fentanyl to anyone who wants it.
Like
No.
this will help.
His plan is seriously for them to kill themselves over OD because they'll get more of it. I like that idea.
At
You give
least you
them-
will save some money. You won't need to pay Medicare for that person. That person died.
No, that is just called the Darwin Awards. Is that right?
you put fentanyl in all the crack and coke that they put in those vending machines.
They'll die from it. Boom. Issue
Yeah.
solved.
I mean, it sounds terrible, but
it would solve.
Nature
To
selection.
be fair, Darwin Awards are a thing.
Nature selection. We
No,
need that.
It's natural selection.
That's not even that. Well, that is because people on drugs do die younger. It also is just thinning of the herd because you're putting out for intentional ending of life. Either way,
we need to do everything possible to save lives, to stop this death from happening. And I think we need to listen to those moms, and that's my commitment.
Mr. Blanchet.
Two things as rapidly as possible. First, we believe that we should act on crime gangs and organizations, defining them as we do for terrorist organization. We have to protect our kids from the violence of those gangs, from the drugs being sold by those gangs, from the guns and whatever else being stolen.
I'm surprised he went on for like at least a minute without speaking of Quebec.
Sale being
Just
by
give
those
me time.
gangs.
Sold?
And not sold, being, you purchase a thing and selling, sold by those gangs. And we mostly have to protect our kids from being recruited by those gangs, becoming violent at 13 and 14 and 16 years old, because this is the real fear of parents like I am. This is a very dangerous situation. I want to come back to immigration because we said that we would come back to immigration.
Oh, no,
Do you
he's coming back with Quebec,
the
guys.
Century Initiative,
I told you.
A sad memory. Officially,
Just a minute.
they said that they had not considered Quebec difference. They had not considered Quebec language. They wanted Canada to be a 100 million people country by the end of the century. Mr. Barton told me himself, that he had not even thought about the Quebec difference in that analysis. And one of his closest collaborators is now a close counselor to Mr. Carney, which seems to be part of that kind of project or ideology. So it is impossible for Canada to have all those people come into Canada. It is impossible for Quebec to receive all those people. And in Quebec, we have the language and values and secularity of the state issue, which is very important. So I say, pause. Let's do things properly. Let's receive migrants in a...
That's a word salad. He spoke for like 2 minutes and didn't say much. He's like, we want to solve that. We don't have a plan, but we want to solve it because it's important. And guys, don't do anything. And this is exactly what he's saying for like 2 minutes. No progress, filler. Take him out of that debate. The debate still works.
Orderly fashion and successfully as a measure of respect for them also.
Mr. Polyev, you wanted a word.
I speak to families all the time who are terrified by the scourge of drugs and illegal guns. And we know those guns are not Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle.
And when we compare Pierre Poilievre to NPD Guy, when they speak about their experience, here, I feel like it's a lot more heartfelt, and I feel like he really talked to some people. Well,
because here's the thing with Pierre, even if it's all political, he actually does show people, and people do message him, and he does respond to some people. Jagoff doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't. Trudeau never did. They talk out their ass.
and peer interact and exchange with people, so it's more believable. And I really hope we elect that guy. I mean, he deserves it. Look at that smile, man. That guy is just, you can smell the good in him.
So when the Liberals try to ban hunting rifles, they're really going after the wrong people. 90% of guns that come in that are used in crime are smuggled illegally over the porous, Liberal-run borders.
The border,
and that's why the police.
border officers.
It's not true, and that's
you
why
literally
the police.
cut the border officers.
The police
in the
actually,
facts.
if I could, the police actually endorsed
do it
me.
again,
The police in Barrie, in Peel, in Sault Ste. Marie have all endorsed me because they know that I will go after the gun smugglers and criminals with 2,000 extra frontline border guards that will stop the guns
After you
from
cut
coming
them,
in.
now you want to hire
But unlike the Liberals and NDP,
It's funny, we spent a good 5 minutes where Jackoff, as we call him, didn't cut off anyone, but now he's back cutting off people because the only thing NPD can do here. He's like, you know what? I don't have argument. I don't have a plan. I will just cut off people so I look like I know what I'm doing.
I will not ban hunting rifles. The Liberals want to protect.
never wanted to ban
I want to
them.
protect Canadians from criminals. The Liberals want to protect turkeys from hunters. I think we know which one makes the most
Mr. Carney,
sense.
quick intervention, Mr. Carney, then I got a question for each of you before this segment's out.
Okay. We absolutely fully support hunting rights of hunters and Indigenous Canadians. But I want to raise an issue, which is a serious issue, talking about safety. There are people, we're in Montreal, in Toronto, across this country, who fear going to their synagogue, fear going to their community center, fear taking their children, leaving their children in school. And this has to stop. This is on.
And it's not under a Liberal mandate. They were there for the last 10 years. So if they are in fear like that, it's because of you guys. Any thoughts on that, Mandalore or D-Lord?
The thing is, you find a lot of these policies, they don't realize that it's never the problem that racism or anti-Semitism always rises or ebbs and flows like the tide, or tide or time is basically the way it goes. It's just the question of how accepted it is. The idea, like in the US, even when you look at certain crime statistics, they just alter it that white Hispanics are committing a lot of crimes and they call them white people. Or they go, oh, Jewish people aren't being. It's like if you look at the FBI crime statistics. It's an environment when you dull down criminalization or you change your culture, right?
Yeah.
People suddenly aren't safe. Like a woman walking through a largely, like you see a lot of videos out of Europe now where there's these women that used to walk through safe neighborhoods or areas. They're being trailed by foreign men.
Because they don't have the same rules. They don't have the same laws. They were not raised the same way. It's sad to say, but that's the truth. That's how it goes. If you are from a country or a religion that disrespect women, why would you respect women? It's tragic, but that's
Well,
how
they know
it
how to make
is.
a good sandwich.
I mean, but you're also talking about an issue like people aren't safe to go to synagogues because
they're being attacked.
Because you're either being attacked or there's discrimination.
Oh.
You're finding videos
and
out
on
of
top
the.
of that, very quickly, it's not just that. Muslims are allowed to protest outside of synagogues and allowed to harass Jews. The RCMP won't stop that. But if you counter-protest them or if you counter-protest any of that bullshit, you can get arrested. If you protest Muslims, if you do all that against them. Just like in Europe, we have a two-tier system.
It's hilarious. We are so progressive, folks. No, we are just racist in disguise.
It's totally unacceptable. So what we're proposing is to make it a criminal offense to threaten or to impede anyone from being near or going to their place of worship, their school, their community center. This it pains me that when we have to do it, because this is not
When he says
what
that,
we should be doing as
it feels like he's
Canadians.
reading the script. He doesn't really believe in this.
And this is a fundamental issue with respect
Let me
to
get 10
anti-Semitism.
seconds from each of you before this segment's out on what you perceive to be the biggest security threat to Canada right now. 10 seconds each. Mr. Polyev.
Retards.
The physical security threat to our country
Liberals.
is the rampant crime wave that
I
is
said
running
that.
out of control. After the last decade, we had a 116% increase in gun crime. We
Okay,
need to
that's
lock
10
up
seconds.
the criminals.
I got to hold you to
secure
10
the borders.
seconds. Mr.
Thank
Carney?
you.
Well, we're in a security section. I think we didn't have a chance to talk about anything internationally.
I feel like he will bring up Trump again. I don't know it by heart.
It's 10 seconds. It's a non-response response.
And now I feel like that segment is the same. What's the biggest security threat to Canada? It's the same as safety, but I guess I will still timestamp it differently. But that's weird.
I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
China, you say?
Yeah.
Mr. Singh.
Biggest security threat, illegal guns and drugs coming across the border, and cuts to services that would make our public safety and security even worse.
Last word to Monsieur Blanchet.
The fact that neither Quebec or Canada is able to protect itself, and that we are still dependent and entirely dependent on Americans to protect us.
This I agree, but
That is
stop
the
bringing up
Action
Quebec.
Plan. Up next, energy and climate.
If he had 13 seconds, he would have said independent to America and Canada.
Yeah. That's hilarious, but you're right.
Improving pipelines, getting things built, unleashing production.
We are unlocking major infrastructure projects, including in conventional energy,
oil and gas.
We're speaking thousands of dollars a year for each family to pay for the damages of climate change.
We can absolutely build important projects like an east-west energy grid.
Energy and climate change. I know how much all of you love talking about pipelines, so here we go. Mr. Singh, to you first. Should Canada build new pipelines to get our oil and gas to market?
Yes.
Well, it's not an approach I favor with public money. There's not any projects that are on the table, so it's not a specific project to look at. I favor, when it comes to the environment, building an east-west energy grid that connects low-cost energy and allows for families to reduce their electricity costs. But let's put this all in context. We're talking about what our energy solutions are in the context of a climate crisis. And we're not just talking about a climate crisis in the far future. We're living it right now. I remember I met a mom a couple of years ago before I had kids who told me she was worried about taking her kids out on some days because of the forest fires in BC. It meant that it was unsafe for kids to go outdoors. Fast forward to when I became a parent just a couple of years after that, and I literally worry about the same thing. The forest fires we saw a couple of years ago meant that many places that didn't see this before saw days where there was such smoke in the air that it was dangerous for kids. We've seen extreme weather, forest fires, heat domes, floods impacting us. We've got to do everything we can to
Thank you,
protect our
Mr.
future.
Singh. That's time. Mr. Polyev, where does fighting climate change land on your list of priorities when it comes to expanding energy opportunities in this country?
It lands within our priorities of bringing home jobs while bringing down emissions around the world. Look, the reality is that if we push production out of our country to more polluting countries, it actually makes the problem worse. But that has been exactly the Liberal approach with the anti-development law, C-69, blocking of 15 LNG export plants over the last 10 years. We have seen more of those jobs go abroad. I want to bring them home. My plan will be to approve, for example, natural gas liquefaction and export. If we sent our gas to India, for example, to displace half of their demand for electricity, we could reduce emissions by 2.5 billion tons, which is 3 times the total emissions of Canada. That's the way we bring emissions down and jobs up. It's common sense, and now it's time to bring it home.
Thank you, Mr. Polyev.
I like it.
The next question is for Mr. Carney. How would your government fast-track pipelines and mining projects while also following the Supreme Court decision that requires consent of Indigenous communities?
Well, I think the first thing, and this goes back a bit to where we started, which is recognizing that we are in a crisis. We need to act with maximum force, and having a process and a consultation, but a consultation with a purpose, which is to identify those projects, those investments of national interest that are really going to move the dial in terms of growth, jobs, energy security.
We won't have growth as long as that guy doesn't want us to sell our stuff to the Europe and the other countries that the bill that we'll mention soon stops us from doing.
Oh, we can watch it after. I sent proof of how stupid Elizabeth May is.
That's hilarious. I cannot wait.
Security, while being consistent with long-term competitiveness, which necessarily means lower carbon. And so part of that process is ensuring that First Nations, Indigenous peoples, are there from the start. It also includes their ability to participate fully in those projects, and that's why, and I know you, I can tell, like, you've got to tell on when I've gone on too long, so I'll finish up, which is, that's why we're doubling, our proposal is to double the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program to $10 billion. What does that actually mean? It means an ability
more
for them
tax
to
paid.
invest equity in
Thank
those
you, Mr.
projects
Carney,
and be
that's
full
time.
partners. Thank you.
My tell is my clock,
tax
and my
to
clock
payer.
is at 0, so that's how it goes. Monsieur Blanchet, do you still oppose pipeline construction in Quebec, even though a majority of Quebecers now apparently say they support it?
We will know about that when we have held the debate about that, which has not begun yet. We are just beginning it. First, we are hearing very creative numbers, and we are being fed nonsense. And we will be back to it in a few minutes. But energy, trade, commerce is from south to north or north to south. And it's true in Quebec also. In a little more than 3 years, Donald Trump won't be in office. And there will be not one more pipeline having been built once we get there. So let's be serious, responsible, and we will be back with the numbers. We don't want to pay in Quebec for such monstrosities which will provide us with nothing.
We now move to open debate, and you all will get a chance, or have had a chance, to get the first shot at this. And Monsieur Blanchet, it is your turn to get the first shot. Canada has a substantial supply of critical minerals, which are in high demand. Are you in favor of allowing these minerals to be mined?
Of course, it has to be.
As long as Quebec is put front and center, and as
As
long as
we
Quebec
get our first pick and the best deal out of all the provinces.
It's hilarious. Nobody will vote him. I swear. That guy is hilarious.
It's a Quebec only party.
Yeah, that's true. So I guess now that's the open debate. That will be funny. Cannot wait to cover that.
Be done properly. Quebec has probably the most important clean phosphate reserves in North America. In Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, it is very important. It has to be exploited. This is the best way to use Paul Saguenay as an infrastructure that we need. We have lithium. Everybody needs lithium. Transportation has to be taken from oil to clean energy. This is what we want to be working on. It is part of the specifics of Quebec economy. So we are in favor of that, but we don't want to pay for the $30 billion which have been spent on oil and gas by the Liberals last year. It's $7 billion.
And it's going to be more. I can predict it under Carney. It's going to be more. You aided Trudeau policies. You will aid Carney even more. Any thoughts on that, Mandalore?
No, you're saying everything's going to be more expensive unless you vote conservative, and it's not just sort of trying to be a scare tactic. Unless you vote conservative, everything's going to go up in price. How much is a different story, but it's all going to go up.
New boss is the same as the old boss.
No worse.
$40 billion
worse, yeah.
of dollars which have been spent by the Liberals on Trans Mountain. It's $9 billion from Quebec. Those are $16 billion of which not $1 has been spent in Quebec to develop a lot more power and wealth for Quebecers with our own money.
We need to let the leader of the Liberals respond.
Well, actually, I was going to pick up on the enormous opportunity that exists in Quebec, exists in Ontario, exists in the north of Canada, really exists across this great nation in terms of critical metals and minerals. We are have one of the biggest resources in this country.
Yet we only can trade to USA because Carney and his liberal buddies, they have a bill that stop us from selling to the Europe and China and whatever. That's hilarious.
And then, exactly, and then at the same time we're like, oh, but we can't deal. We're not going to deal with the U.S. because Trump bad. But then who the fuck are we going to deal with? We're going to die.
We can't even use our resources that we praise we are having. Vote Liberal for the destruction of
this
Canada.
It's not just enormous economic opportunity, it is a strategic opportunity for Canada. So we have to make a decision, not just to develop it, but how do we develop it and who are our partners for it? Do we become more dependent on the United States, which is what they want? By the way, President Trump this week
And also
said
what
he wants
Carney
to put a
wants.
tax on critical
Let's be
metals
honest, that's
and
also
minerals.
what Carney wants.
Just showing again,
Yeah, but the
reliable,
job
if I may,
is not
if I may,
to-
and so the discussions
to
that
negotiate,
so
not to have
if I may,
terrorists.
if I may
Let's
finish,
let him finish.
Let me finish.
Full chaos.
So the opportunity includes in Europe and includes in Asia as our partners. Last point. In order to get it done, we'll put in place a first and last mile fund. So these projects are connected to road and rail so they can go quickly to market. And we will have all of the other fast tracking measures in place that I talked about earlier in terms of capital, timing, approvals, so that we can move quickly, we can be stronger at home.
Move quickly says by a guy that his administration means 17 years to build a new building. Yeah, I will believe that. Sure. Move quickly. 15 years later.
Always with the
Mr.
approval
Singh.
of
Yeah,
Quebec.
I
Mr.
think
Singh has the
Sure
floor.
about that.
we should absolutely take advantage of the fact that we've got incredible amounts of critical minerals in our country. And the way we do that is with any energy project or any project of this nature, make sure it's got the local community buy-in. It creates good jobs in communities, make sure we are meeting all our environmental needs, and we work with Indigenous partnership. And so I absolutely agree with that. I want to build on something Mr. Blanchet mentioned about the investments that this country has made. What I found very troubling is that the past number of years, the Liberal government record is one where we have spent the most subsidies compared to any other country in the G7 on subsidizing oil and gas. These are
He brought J7. I will say something. I heard we are about to get thrown out of it because we are too poor. Canada is too poor. I don't know how much of that is true, but I wouldn't be surprised because we got the Liberal for so long. Any thoughts on that, Mandalore? Getting thrown out of J7. Are you there?
comment.
No comments. So I'm hitting a nerve there.
highly profitable companies.
You
I
voted
think that's
for
the
it.
wrong thing to do. We fought against it again and again.
No, you voted
and then
for
the
it
Liberals have
over
continued
and
to do
again.
it. And so my question really to Mr. Carney is, will you commit to ending oil and gas subsidies?
Yeah.
We should be using that to invest in people, not giving it to highly profitable oil and gas companies.
Yeah, we talked.
I promised Mr. Polyev the next. We'll come back and get that question answered. Mr. Polyev.
Well, Mr. Carney, you point out that Donald Trump has a wrong-headed idea of putting a tax on our mines and our industry. And that is wrong. But so do you. You want to apply a massive industrial carbon tax on Canadian mines, Canadian steel mills, Canadian aluminum plants,
You want to let them just pollute as
Canadian
much as they
oil
want?
and gas. And your idea is to double the tax that Trump is applying by hitting them a second time. This will do nothing for the environment. It will actually ship our jobs south of the border,
Mr. Pollier's
just
plan is let them
like
pollute as much as
President
they
More
want.
Jagmeet
Trump wants.
bullshit. Shut the
My
fuck up,
plan is
Jagmeet.
to bring that production home here to Canada. For example, I will give a tax credit to low-emitting Canadian industry like Quebec's aluminum, for example, or British Columbia's natural gas, so that we not only bring home the production, but we do it below global average levels of emissions,
You
so
translate
that we
that.
actually help the environment while bringing
wants to
home
let
the
big
jobs
polluters
for our
pollute
people
We have
they want.
to let him
at the
finish.
same time.
Jack
That
off,
is,
can I
that is
shut
a
the fuck up?
sensible, pragmatic
Kick
approach
him out.
that puts us in charge of our economic destiny so we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength for a change.
Mr.
want to let
Carney,
them
we've
pollute
got.
as
Hang
much
on a
as they
sec.
want.
I want to give you a chance to speak to Mr. Singh's criticism about oil and gas subsidies and Mr. Poilievre's criticism about the industrial carbon tax.
Okay, I'm going to make 3 points. I'll make 4 if you want me to respond to that, but I want to make 3. The first is that I answered this question last night, but I think the puck had already dropped in the Canadians game, so not everyone heard it. Yes, end to oil and gas subsidies.
That's why you need New Democrats.
Secondly, I would have done it independently. Secondly, recognizing that the biggest component of that was the cost of building Keystone. Keystone, which
The cost of buildings is because Liberal have so many roadblocks and bureaucracy around it.
And the Liberals are the one who stopped Keystone. They made it expensive and then stopped it after everything was done.
He doesn't know shit. He's
No,
just the outsider that doesn't understand Canada. Yet he worked in Canada for years.
which is the pipeline, which has helped to increase oil and gas oil exports rather by 50% in this country. That is an asset of the people of Canada. We own it. And the question of what to do it. So it's not a subsidy that has disappeared, it's actually an asset of Canada. The third point, though, in terms of where the oil and gas industry, particularly the oil industry, wants to and needs to go, which is to become low carbon in the production and transportation of oil. One of the big projects we need to move forward with is carbon capture and storage, the Pathways project, so that we have oil and gas that is competitive, not just today.
It will never be competitive under the Liberals because they will keep selling to the USA.
No, or they'll tax it to the highest. They'll tariff it to the highest fucking thing, and then no one will buy it because it'll be too expensive.
Yeah.
10 years from now and 20 years from now, as the world uses less, we want to have more market share. We need to do
Mr.
that.
Carney,
My government will move that.
But by definition, a subsidy isn't when we buy a pipeline. I'm talking about subsidies that go to oil and gas companies. Independent, separate from the country, oil and gas companies. That's what I'm talking about.
The figure you quoted last night included the cost of the pipeline.
Do you want to
There's
address his
billions
point?
of dollars we're spending. We got to stop spending.
Sorry, can we get you to address his point about the industrial carbon tax?
How much will the industrial carbon tax?
NPD said we must stop spending. It's hilarious because they want to spend more, so we have free care and free everything. It's hilarious. That's
they don't want to spend more. They want to tax more to cover everything.
That's a clown show right now.
Add to the price of a car.
So the first thing I want to say is I'm going to address the broader point. Broader point is the entire absence of a climate plan from Mr. Poilievre, which, by the way, is going to put our industry and our country at a disadvantage as we're looking for new trading partners. Guess what? Most people want to deepen our partnership in Europe, in Asia. Those countries care about whether or not you've made progress. Second thing is, we're designing a program so that the big polluters pay Canadians at home for making responsible climate choices, for retrofitting their home, getting their emissions down, or improving otherwise. And that is smart climate policy. It's better for the big polluters, and it's better for Canadians.
Pierre Poilievre.
Mr. Carney didn't answer my question. I asked how much would an industrial carbon tax on Canadian steel add to the price of a car? And he won't answer because he knows that it will be very expensive because there's lots of steel in cars. Now, Mr. Carney has temporarily
But do you know the answer?
hid in the
You don't know
carbon
the answer
tax.
either. You're just
It's
throwing out random
thousands of
questions.
dollars, thousands of
Just
dollars.
making it up, though. You don't
extra
know.
cost.
Not answering and all the bullshit.
Jagmeet keep cutting off Pierre right now, and Pierre is answering, yet Jagmeet is like, you're not answering. It's hilarious. Doesn't he listen, or he's just stupid? Which one of
That's
the
who he
two?
reminds me of.
Woo.
D-Lord. Jagmeet is the Indian beans.
I take his away.
I actually do know the answer to that question. He's wrong.
When you add taxes to steel, you raise the price of everything that uses steel. When you add everything, taxes
a strawman argument to say, do you know the price?
when
You
you
don't know the
add
price.
when
You
you
don't know the
add
answer.
when you add the
We cannot hear someone speaking without Jackov's freaking cutting off that person. I swear, this is the most disrespectful prick on that panel right now. That Jagmeet guy, I hate him so much. I cannot stand that guy.
He should be kicked out.
carbon tax onto the price of, for example, fertilizer, you increase the price of food. So while Mr. Carney has temporarily hidden the Liberal carbon tax at the pumps while keeping the tax fully in law and planning to raise it after the election, he's also going after a tax on our industry that will ultimately be passed on to you. After a lost Liberal decade of rising costs, we cannot afford a fourth Liberal term. We need a new government that will fully axe the carbon tax, increase the jobs that we have here in Canada, and bring down your cost of living.
We got just a little over 3 minutes left in this segment. So, Mr. Singh, I want to ask you, do you think climate change is still a priority from Canadians? You're out there. What are you hearing?
Absolutely. You speak to any
already calling bullshit because they're trying to ban Teslas, which are the most known energy efficient non-gas cars. But shh, we're still supporting it. Yeah, that's why the American and the U.S., who are all green movement and all that bullshit.
And didn't he says, or I should say, didn't he say prior in the same debate that his party was healthcare and free everything? And now they're asking if NPD priority is environment and non-pollution and climate. So either he's lying right now or he lied prior. It's hilarious. NPD is a liar and a disrespectful prick.
Young person, and they think, we're seeing climate crisis in front of us happening right now. Speak to seniors who say, we used to be able to live in our homes without air conditioning, and now we're seeing heat crises in communities that never had worries about extreme weather. We're seeing flooding, we're seeing forest fires like never before. We are living in a climate crisis, so Canadians are absolutely worried about it. As soon as we come into a summer, we start seeing those forest fires again. It's top of mind for Canadians because they're living it, they're seeing it. And I want those Canadians to know, Mr. Carney is not going to end those fossil fuel subsidies unless I'm there to fight back. Mr. Poilievre wants to let big polluters pollute as much as they want.
What do you want to say, Mandalore?
Bullshit.
Yeah, that's true. I would too.
Poison our beautiful land, our water, and air. He wants to let them dump into our oceans. I'm going to fight back and defend our environment.
Monsieur Blanchet, on the issue of whether or not people still care about climate change.
I think people should be kept very informed about climate change because we are in a very strange denial situation about climate change, which still exists and is very expensive. And I'm sorry to crash your party, guys, but you are telling fairy tales. Clean oil and gas is a fairy tale. Large-scale carbon sequestration, sorry, I'm French, is a fairy tale. It does not exist. If Alberta wanted to exploit oil and gas and it were not a matter of pollution, I wouldn't mind at all. That's their business. Our own powerhouse in terms of energy in Quebec is clean energy. We are the best place in the world to achieve that. Our market is the northeastern part, Democrat part of United States. We want to keep our money to create wealth in Quebec for Quebecers.
We are in the Canada debate, buddy. Stop praising Quebec. We get it. You're from Quebec. You're pro-Quebec. We get it. Nobody will vote for you outside of Quebec. Thank you very much.
Let me give Mr. Be different because we can afford
Monsieur
to be
Blanchet,
different.
let me give. I will get to you because I said I would. But you've taken a couple of hits here, and I want to give you a chance to respond to some of the things the people on this side of the stage have said.
Thank you. Well, first of all, we do support protecting the environment. We want to ban the dumping of raw sewage into our waters. We want to hold large corporations to high environmental standards to protect our water and air. But we cannot do that by raising taxes and sending jobs overseas, as Mr. Carney is proposing to do. That has been the approach of the last 10 years of the Liberal government. What the biggest companies that develop our resources say is that we need to repeal the Liberal anti-development law C-69, a law Mr. Carney wants to keep in place. They say we need to repeal the industrial carbon tax and get rid of the Liberal energy cap. We need 6 months approval in order to take back energy security and energy sovereignty.
We can summarize that. He wants to include as much as possible.
Hang on. Last word to Mr. Carney in this segment, please.
Thank you very much. I was born in Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories, just north of what the oil sands became. When I was born and when I was growing up in Edmonton, early days, it was a fairy tale, quote unquote. But you know what happened? Canadian ingenuity, Canadian engineers, Canadian governments, both the federal government and the Alberta government got together and converted this.
The worst pollution
If I
in the
may,
world.
if I may.
The worst pollution
may I
in
finish?
the
May I
world.
finish? May I
Nonsense.
10 more seconds to finish, please. Let him finish his point.
That's the opportunity we have. That's the opportunity we have in carbon capture. That's the opportunity we have in small modular reactors. That's the opportunity we have in hydrogen beyond. This country can be a clean energy superpower. My government will help deliver it.
And that is time for this segment. Gentlemen, let us go to our final theme, which is called Leading in a Crisis.
Okay, and this is where we are pausing at 1 hour, 21 minute, and 47 seconds. Now, here's the thing. We had Mandalore sharing something. I didn't see it, so I trust you, Mandalore. I will screen share whatever you sent in DMs, and we will see what happens with that. There we go.
We have to do more for international development assistance. That's why we needed to bring in financial transaction taxes, wealth taxes, increase corporate tax rates, and ensure that the government of Canada has more public money. We have to do more for international development assistance. That's why we needed to bring in financial transaction taxes, wealth taxes, increase corporate tax rates, and ensure that the government of Canada has more public money. We have to do more for international development assistance. That's why we needed to bring in financial transaction taxes, wealth taxes, increase corporate tax rates, and ensure that the government of Canada has more public money. We have to do more for international development assistance. That's why.
I just realized that's on repeat. Any thoughts, Mandalore?
Well, she's saying we have like that. I'm just this whole point I shared this was to show how stupid and how they are supposed to be our far left, but they're just a drunk. They're communism drunk. Like, well, America's spending less on illegals. We should spend more on that. It's just like, go screw yourself.
And now we will cover another thing. NPD Liberal Arm Reduction Paradise Vancouver. So that's the next thing we will be reacting to. That's from Mandalore again. So let's just react to this.
Okay, so the story of how someone tried to murder me in Vancouver. For context, I live in Toronto, Ontario. I've lived downtown for like a decade. I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, and I was visiting Vancouver on vacation. So I had taken the train from Toronto to Vancouver. It's like a 4-day sleeper train. Wonderful.
By the way, I gotta say, this goes back to what we spoke about a few minutes ago, security and safety. I think that kind of works very well with that. I think that's why you suggested that segment, Mandalore. It's security and safety. I feel like 20 years ago, we wouldn't have that.
But this is proving the whole point about how they want to go harder on crimes and blah, 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 blah. But they're promoting drug use, which is creating more crimes and doing nothing about it.
Yeah. So let's play the rest.
Would recommend to anybody. And I'd been in Vancouver for like a little over 24 hours. It was my first full day in Vancouver. But last Monday, I did have to work. So I spent a lot of the day in my hotel working. And so I decided to take myself out for dinner and just kind of go walk around and see things. So took myself out for dinner. After dinner, I went to a store and I bought myself a couple of White Claws.
What are White Claws?
They're alcoholic sort of girly drinks.
Oh, okay. That's a great way to.
White Claws are basically a section of the younger millennials' way of like getting drunk or canned beer or stuff, and it sounds like a meme, but
it's chick drinks.
I feel like a boomer right now. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but now I understand it's alcohol and it's to get wasted because this is how the young people work now.
Because I figured I'm on vacation, I'm going to enjoy it. I'll go back to the hotel after my walk and, have a few drinks watching cable TV in my king size bed. So I had actually already been walking through Stanley Park for probably at least an hour and a half. I wasn't actually in Stanley Park when the assault happened. I was on the other side of the harbor there, almost back to where my hotel was in Cole Harbor. So I was in kind of, I think what most people would consider like a fairly safe touristy area.
Not anymore, because we are soft on crime.
Oh,
Because
look at her face.
yeah, just looking at the face, it's telling everything you need to know. And I heard very sad stories about how friends, it has become so bad that women, they walk with pepper spray, and they are afraid, and when they come to Canada, they feel like we will be safe. Not anymore, apparently. Look at that, we are in Canada right now, and that happened.
Area that's typically well trafficked by people. And I was just walking and I happened to be like in a little area that was maybe darker than most and there was more trees. So I was on the seawall just walking, and I think this guy said something to me. I honest to God can't remember what he would have said. And I like turned and he was up slightly like a little grassy hill. And he didn't even respond. He just ran at me to attack me. I've honest to God never seen anything like that, where it just felt like he was a predator and I was prey. Like, this wasn't because he asked me out and I turned him down. This wasn't because we were chatting and I was trying to get away.
Random attack. This is what happened under the Liberals. We are soft on crime, and maybe just me trying to run a point down home, or do a home run, I should say. What if this a person that wasn't checked, and they just came here illegally or even legally, but they didn't bother checking the person, and that was a criminal from somewhere else. But because we are so open-minded, we accept criminals from elsewhere here. Um, no background check. Boom, we got someone that does crime, and now he spread the crimes here. Any thoughts on that, Mandalore?
No, you've covered it. It's pretty much most illegals and pieces of shit who should be in jail, but the NDP, and this isn't in a heavy NDP area. That's why that's why I'm showing. This is why I showed it, because it even popped up as short around the time we were talking about the crime reduction, about how they want to be tough on crime, but this shit happens all the time now.
Wow. Make Canada safe again. That should be the new motto.
So a lot of what you see with stuff like this is they go, we want stuff to be safe, but they create, usually what's going to happen is, like, if you look down at like Mexico, even Mexico, in parts of Mexico and South America, these areas which you think are safe havens, like, oh, you don't get in the wrong cab, that's clear and obvious. There's travel warnings issued. They say don't go down there, don't go to these parts, because of the violence and the risk of crime. So she's just walking through a part of that would have been safe 3 years ago or so. You take in a bunch of migrants or something happened, cultural shift. It goes from a high trust society to a low trust society.
And boom, she get a black eye and a scar under the other eye.
Like, it was just, he locked in on me and was like, I'm going to kill this girl. So
Can you make the video
right when that happened, like, I could tell he was running at me. I
make the video
started
full
running as
screen so
well,
people can see
and
her
he
face
was
a bit better.
quickly able to catch up to me, and he grabbed me by like the back of my jacket and then just slammed me into the ground. And I guess, like, for context, I'm about 5'2", maybe like 135 pounds. I'm not a small person, but I'm not a big person. And he was very much like an average sized man, maybe, 5'10", probably 160 to 170 pounds. So with that first assault, I was, one, stunned, but also like, oh my God. And I just started fighting, screaming, fighting. Like I said, I had those drinks in that bag, and I was able to pop back up pretty quickly. And then I was just like swinging them on him, like just wailing on him.
hopefully the guy got injuries like hers. I don't wish harm, but he kind of deserves it.
But this again isn't a NDP area where they're more serious for people facing times for crime.
Yeah, that's what you vote for, folks.
He kind of backed down fairly quickly with that one, and I was able to run off. And at that point, I thought like, okay, that was just a random attack. I fought him off. I actually pulled my phone out and I called 911, and I was on police. I was on the phone with the police saying like, I'm being attacked. Please help me. When he caught up to me for a second time, I didn't realize that like he was still following me again because it was quite dark at the time. But the second attack was definitely, I think, the worst or one of the worst of them. So he was able to, he grabbed my phone out of my hand and like smashed it on the ground multiple times. And the only way I can describe him was being like gleeful. Like he was taking great joy in hurting me. And, you know, I just knew like this person is not okay. There's no way to like ration or reason with them. Just fight. And so he got me down again. Like again, he grabbed me down on the ground. I almost feel lucky this time because he actually got me down on my back.
I find that very sad. And that reinforced the man versus woman war ongoing. So I feel like illegal immigration, soft on crime, all of that crap traits that. And then she will hate men for that stupid guy making. I think it's disgusting. This is what happens when you vote wrong.
But this is what it's not even just showing that the NDP are bad, it's showing how much Jagoff is lying about how they view crime. This is
if that was him, it would be like, oh, it's immigrant. We just let him burn anyone they want.
And I'm not the strongest person, but I do have very strong legs. So I was kicking the fucking shit out of him, like kicking his chest, kicking his face, screaming. He was yelling at me like, shut up, you stupid bitch. You're such a C word. Just, you know, everything you would expect a loser man to be yelling at you while he's trying to kill you. And so eventually he actually like at one point grabbed my foot and ripped my shoe off because I'd been kicking him in the face so hard. And I was able to get away. That's when most of my injuries happened, kind of that second time and then the third time that he got me down. And I was able to like run off again and get pretty far before he grabbed me for the third time. The third time when he grabbed me, that's when he really started wailing specifically on my head. And that was at the point where like there was a second where like I blacked out completely, like my vision just went blank. And I just thought like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
She's lucky she didn't die or she didn't turn blind.
Get up. Like,
or just brain damage.
You're hurt. This sucks. You're bleeding, but like get up because you're going to fucking die. And so from that point on, kind of when I had that brief blackout to like when I popped back up again, it's very blurry because I think I was already adrenaline rushed and that just like sent me into overdrive. So I was able to fight him off again and continue running. He did grab me like a fourth time, but didn't quite get me all the way on the ground again to hurt me. And so I was just like running towards where I knew there would be people with one shoe just bleeding. He did actually break my nose. So I was just covered in blood from my nose. There was this is quite a large cut that I was just bleeding from. You know, my hands, my legs were all bloody. My pants were all ripped open and I was just bleeding all over the place. So like a bat out of hell. I must have ran so fast and thankfully encountered like a group of people. And I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know this until much later at the hospital.
I will be honest, there's a moment of doubt. She was smiling, I believe, at some point. But like the overall story is, if it's true, if it really happened, I'm sorry about that person. And
no, I think depending. I haven't watched this video at full. I just was seeing. She might be smiling, going, she didn't know how bad she had it, and she's glad she survived.
Maybe.
So,
that they actually happened to be a group of like undercover plainclothes cops So
Oh,
when I went
yeah,
screaming
that
at
would make it
them, they
smile.
clearly could see
Yeah.
the distress I was in, and he was still chasing me. Like, he was still trying to attack me and kill me. If he had just turned around at any point and run.
By the way, we got some people that are like defund the police. What do you do if you defund these blue
Whoa,
people?
it's not just defund the police. Defund the police and not allowed yourself to, because we're heading in the way of Europe where you're not allowed to defend yourself. Like,
Yeah,
if you say you want a gun, if you say for self-defense, you're denied. So they want no cops to be able to defend you, but they also don't want you to defend yourself.
they just wanted to die. Less tax.
Mm-hmm.
Run off. I don't think the police ever would have caught him, because it was a completely random attack. Like, how would anyone have figured this out? So because he was still chasing me, they were able to apprehend him. I thought they were just a group of like nice guys who saw this girl running and screaming and crying and bleeding and clearly figured that he was the one who attacked her. And so from there, like, they sat me down. It was still kind of like on the wharf. It was near like the Westin Hotel where, I found people. They were able to get my statements at that point, because they asked me, like, do you want to go to the hospital first, or would you like to give your statements? I'm like, I want to give my statements because it's as fresh as could be. And I knew I was like shaking and full of adrenaline. I'm like, I don't want to forget anything. I want to tell you everything. And so gave my statements. They went back and they were doing like crime scene reconstruction. So they were able to find my shopping bag that had the white claws in it that I was beating on him with, that was covered in blood, probably both mine and his. And the white claws actually like broken open. They were empty because I guess I was hitting him so hard. So they asked me, like, is this yours? They found my other shoe at one point. They were wonderful and, did a really great job, I have to say. It was a super terrible experience, but every single first responder that I dealt with, from the police to the EMTs, the doctors and nurses in the hospital, the victim services units that I've been dealing with afterwards, were like so wonderful.
We need more of that testimony out there just to praise more the people in blue. I respect so much the cops. It's not for nothing.
Oh no, and cops
They
can
are
be
needed.
corrupt, and they need to be properly trained, and they need to be held to the same standards that everyone else is. But I support the cops as long as they're doing their job properly.
Same here. I agree with you. Your statement is even better than what I had in mind. So I like that testimony. It's sad it happened to her, but we need more stories like that just to say, yeah, cops are needed. First responder are needed.
I cannot be grateful enough. And I know I'm very lucky that, one, I was in a position that people witnessed the crime, and those people so happen to be cops, and that carries a lot of weight. I know not all women are lucky enough to, one, get out of a situation like that and survive it, two, to even be believed that this person has hurt you and attacked you, and three, for the police to take action and choose to charge this person and kind of give them the full whatever they can do via the law. So I'm so grateful. I'll have to do a part 2 because we're at 10 minutes, and I'll tell everyone about the legal stuff and contacting my family and my hospital experience and trying to get home from Vancouver. But I would just like to say, like, I'm very grateful for everyone who sent me really nice messages. The only thing I can say to like any other women is fight.
I actually agree with that strongly. So thank you a lot for sharing this. It's not because we are in Canada that we are safe. And again, we got empathy pretending it's not an issue. We got liberals that kind of promote that kind of behavior by not really being hard on crime and by opening the borders the way they do without doing even checks on identity and background checks. When you accept someone in your country, you should do a full-on background check to know exactly who you accept in your country, because you end up with that kind of cases. I would be surprised that someone that was born in Canada, there's no way in hell someone would be like that. Maybe a troubled person with mental illness, but even there, I feel like we had a very interesting part 2 for that debate. We will have part 3 very soon in a few hours. We all need a small break. With that being said, Mandalore, what do you have going on your end of the internet?
Your second stream, and I will be napping. If you didn't see
Yeah.
my message earlier.
Okay, well, this is what's going on. And I'm excited for part 3, and we will do part 3 when you wake up. And
Whenever that is.
yeah, and that's what comes next on the channel. D-Lord, what do you have going on your end of the internet? The D-Lord is gone again. D-Lord 2 times. D-Lord 3 times. He's out. We are out. With that being said, on my end of the internet, well, we got part 3 soon. We will finish the debate. And we will talk about Carney furthermore and Pierre Pouliev as well. And next week we talk about movies again because election week will be over. So let's just put out as much political content as we can. And we are out very soon. Actually, I have that. Well, actually, no, it's kind of pointless to have that. So let's just end it here, and we will
Do
have
it.
part 3.
Sorry, just do it later. Ugh.
Yeah, part 3. See you next time.
See you.